I hope I'm speaking to fellow faculty members at the University of Maryland Law School. I hope that there's some of you here, and I'm very glad to be speaking also to faculty at the University of Baltimore Law School to talk about what we as faculty members can do about these issues. You will recall that in December of 2013, the American Studies Association passed at its annual meeting in December a BDS resolution. In response to that decision, my wife Sonia Michelle and I, she also teaches in the history department, wrote to the president of the University of Maryland, College Park, Wallace Lowe, and the provost, Marianne Rankin, expressing our indignation and anger about this development, and urging the university to take a clear position in opposition to it. And President Lowe and Provost Rankin then joined, I think there were probably 200 other university presidents who rejected the BDS resolution. But Lowe and Rankin went further to the great, I think, pride and honor of the University of Maryland College Park, and they said the University of Maryland College Park was proud of its connections to Israeli academic institutions and had every intention of sustaining those connections, and moreover, in the future, was going to expand those connections. And that was the response of the leadership of the University of Maryland in College Park. I think it's important to keep that in mind. It's important to remember that the ASA, the American Studies Association precedent, took place in part because the seizure of power in the American Studies Association had taken place over the previous year before the December meeting. The president, the leading officers of the organization had a BDS slate, had one election, and then they used the organization and misused the organization to facilitate the vote at its annual meeting. It's important to keep in mind that these annual meetings of academic institutions, by necessity, always have a small minority of the actual membership attending. So what we're talking about here, the Nobel Prize-winning economist, the University of Maryland College Park, no longer with us, Mansur Olson, wrote about the logic of collective action. I'm sure many of you know Olson's work. And that is, it's a book about how small minorities can get their way in the face of majorities who are less interested and less organized. And in a sense, that is the history to the extent that BDS has had success, it is very much the logic of collective action of an organized minority in the face of an indifferent and unorganized majority. The BDS movement, as became clear to us, is a professional campaign. It's not a campaign by idealistic young students who read the newspapers and become outraged. It is a campaign by professionals who have been advocating such views of Israel for the last 70 years and have a great deal of experience. As Lisa Lewin is here, and the Holy Land Foundation was mentioned as important. Apparently, at one of the Holy Land Foundation cases, evidence came to the fore that the Muslim Students Association, the Students for Justice in Palestine, and BDS efforts are connected to the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, and that is something that we weren't fully aware of. But the initiative for passing a BDS resolution in the American historical profession, which is a much larger, much older organization than the American Studies Association, and a much more prestigious organization, a much more important organization in the humanities and social sciences at American universities. The initiative to pass the BDS resolution came from an organization called Historians Against the War. It has a website, HAW, and Historians Against the War was an organization formed by aging new leftists from the 60s and then successor generations of leftists, not liberals, leftists, who opposed the war in Iraq. And HAW, in August, during the war against Hamas, wrote a petition which it claimed 1,000 historians had signed. I looked at the list, many of them came from Mexico and Latin America, but there were many Americans as well, which accused Israel in August of 2014 of committing war crimes against the people of Gaza, and called for the United States to cut off arms shipments to the state of Israel in the midst of the war. This same organization, Historians Against the War, then wrote a resolution to pass a BDS resolution in the AHA. Now, this is a story about the rule of law and the importance of procedure and the difference between the AHA and the ASA. Because in the American Historical Association, the president of the AHA was a historian from the University of Chicago named Jan Goldstein. And there had not been a seizure of power by the BDS advocates in the year preceding the January 2015 meeting of the American Historical Association. And so the American Historical Association's officers and its executive committee were people who viewed the American Historical Association as first and foremost and only as an academic organization, as a scholarly organization. The American Historical Association, it was not, in their view, a political organization. This is very important for thinking about the success and failure of BDS. The American Historical Association's rules require resolutions to be discussed at a January business meeting to be submitted to the organization by November 1st. And the reason for that November 1st deadline is so that the resolutions can be announced in the AHA's publication perspectives or sent via email, and so so people can decide whether or not the business meeting is worth their time, whether they're going to attend the business meeting, and if they're going to attend the business meeting, so that they will have time to evaluate and think about the resolutions. Between November 1st and January 1st, that's 2 months. So the deadline is there for a reason. That is to prevent resolutions from being introduced at the meeting or 2 days before when nobody has time to read them and then rush them through. The HAW did not meet that deadline. And the resolution that it submitted had a number of names on it who were not members of the American Historical Association. And the resolution called for the Palestinian right of return. The AHA officers rejected the placing the resolution on the program of the agenda of the business meeting for those reasons, adding that the American Historical Association, as an association, does not have within its purview whether or not there should be a Palestinian right of return. Again, making the distinction between a political organization and a scholarly organization. The members of HAW were not done. On December 22nd, about a week before the meeting, which was on January 4th or 5th, I think, they submitted what's been called a less than BDS resolution. That is, it didn't call for the right of return or the destruction of the state of Israel. Rather, like the earlier resolution, it rested on an assertion of a set of facts about what had happened during the war in Gaza. And the assertion was that the Israeli Air Force had intentionally bombed or threatened to bomb an archive, an oral history archive of the on the campus of Islamic State University in Gaza, or Islamic University in Gaza. And because the American Historical Association, of course, is preserved with the existence of archives, that this was an issue that should rise to the level of an agenda item at the business meeting. And with the hook of the accusation that the Israeli Air Force had attempted to destroy an archive, then came the whole litany of Israeli sins. So the Israel Studies, the program in Israel Studies at Maryland had a panel on the Gaza war. Yoram Perry had invited the Israeli journalist Ehud Yari to speak on the panel. And I was impressed with Yari's presentation. And so I emailed him in November, because of the November resolution also had these accusations about the destruction of the archive. I said, well, what's up? Because Yari is one of the television reporters in Israel who has worked a great deal on Gaza. He said, rockets were being fired from the campus of the Islamic University, and the Israeli Air Force was suppressing that fire. And at no point was any oral history archive attacked, and certainly that was not the purpose. Moreover, the accuracy of the Israeli suppression focused on the rockets did not lead to any damage to other parts of the universities. This was a war, so Yari sent me a detailed email about that, and I used it in not only emails to the AHA Executive Committee, but also to many emails to my fellow full professors, who were also members of the American Historical Association. I did not want to write to, of course, on principle, I would not write to non-tenured professors. I did not want to put them in such a difficult position. And I only wrote to associate professors who I thought would also be inclined to agree, because these are difficult issues and risky issues. I got a number of emails from some of my colleagues who are to my left. Netanyahu is an idiot. The settlements are immoral. The Israeli government is missing one chance for peace after another. On and on along those lines. But I will not support this resolution, because the AHA is not a political organization, it is a scholarly organization. And you are right. And this is, and furthermore, people would say, I am not a hack, by the way. I'm a historian. How the hell do I know where a bomb fell in Gaza on August 15th? I'm a historian. You're asking me to agree to a set of facts that I cannot possibly agree to as a scholar. So I got a number of those kind of emails. We had a spark plug organizer named Karen Musher, and Sharon, thank you, and a very brave associate professor at Rutgers, David Greenberg. So they were able to talk to some of the younger people, more, in a very effective way, and